Hey, third grade readers. Welcome to our reading time today. We have been spending a ton of time during our independent reading and during our mini lessons talking about how to set ourselves up for successful reading. So we've made plans, we've set goals, we've tracked our reading in our reading logs. We have done a turn and talk virtual style. We've written about our reading. We've had partners interview us so that we can reflect upon our own reading. So we have done all of the hard work to get our reading success totally set up for our third grade year. So now what we're going to start doing is really focusing on what we're thinking while we're reading. Remember, the whole reason that we ever do any reading is to understand what we're reading, whether that's nonfiction books and we're trying to learn some facts, or whether it's fiction stories and we're trying to figure out what's going on with our characters. We are always trying to understand the text. And one way that we do that is we give ourselves comprehension checks. So, usually after a chapter or a section of the book, we pause and we ask ourselves these three questions. Who is in this part? What just happened? And does this fit with something that already happened, or is this new? If you can answer these questions, then you know, yep, I understand what I've read so far and I can continue reading. But if you can't answer these questions, or if you're unsure of some of the answers, then that means you need to go back and reread and turn your mind on instead of it being off the first time you read. So today we're going to practice this. You've already read Chapter 1, or you've listened to Chapter 1 in Indian Shoes. So today I'm going to read to you a little bit of Chapter 2 of Indian Shoes, and I'm going to show you how I would pause and give myself a comprehension check before moving on. Then you're going to listen to a little bit more of Chapter 2, and you're going to give yourself a comprehension check on its learning. This will show you and your teachers if your mind is on while you're listening to a story. Now, you all know that I love to take notes while I'm reading, and this is a great skill to do while you're reading independently also, to jot down things that you think might be important when it comes time for your own comprehension check. So the three words that I wrote down in my notepad, because you know I like to use just keywords instead of writing the whole thing out, the first thing I wrote was the word who. And then I left some space in my notepad because as I read, if I find an answer to the name of some characters, I'm going to jot them down so that I'm ready for my comprehension check. Then I wrote the word what and added some space in my notebook so that I could write down anything that I think is important as I'm reading. The last three words I wrote were, does this fit? That question is asking you, given what you already know in this story, does what you just read make sense? Seems like it fits with the characters, seems like it fits with the setting, seems like it fits with what's already happened? Or is this something that was kind of unexpected and maybe the author is trying to give you a clue that something's about to happen different in the story? So as I read Chapter 2, I'm going to pause and take some notes so that I can answer these three questions when it comes time for my own comprehension check. Here's our story. Chapter 2 of Indian Shoes. Don't forget the pants. As Ray and Grandpa Half Moon climbed a flight of stairs to the front terrace of the rented mansion, Jonah appeared to greet them. "Welcome to the wedding," he said. "I believe, Ray," Grandpa began, smoothing his church tie, "that you and the groom have some business to attend to." Okay, I'm going to pause. I know of a few characters that I should probably jot down. So far, I've got Ray, Grandpa Half Moon, and a man named Jonah, who I believe might be the groom in this wedding. Let's find out more information. Grandpa was right. That afternoon, Jonah, a Polish Menominee from Chicago, was marrying their friend Nancy Lee, a Choctaw girl who'd moved to town from Norman, Oklahoma. She'd been friends with the Half Moons for only a year or so, but Nancy Lee knew she could count on Ray, and he'd agreed to serve as the ring bearer. Another character, Nancy Lee, the bride. Ray had never been to a wedding before. He knew he'd have to carry the ring down an aisle in front of a lot of staring people, and worse, a video camera. Ray's stomach flopped and flipped just thinking about it, but he was looking forward to the wedding cake. Jonah bent down in his gray tux. This was my grandmother's wedding ring, he explained, digging it out of his breast pocket. Today, it'll become Nancy Lee's. Ray watched as Jonah set the white gold band in his palm. Tiny diamonds glittered. The metal felt cool in Ray's hand. Sure is pretty, said Grandpa, who was carrying Ray's belt, socks, and dress shoes. I'll take good care of it, Ray said, curling his fingers tight. He looked down at his fist and then handed the ring to Grandpa. We'll take good care of it. So, let me pause before I turn the page. What has happened so far? Well, they are on their way to a wedding. Ray is the ring bearer, and he's feeling pretty nervous. He has asked for Grandpa's help keeping the ring safe. Jonah grinned, all bright blue eyes and dimples. I'd appreciate that, Jonah said. As it turns out, Nancy Lee remembered everything except a pillow to carry it on. Ray couldn't understand why he'd need a pillow to carry the ring. He'd been carrying things his whole life without a pillow. That's how it goes with weddings, Grandpa said, slipping the ring into his jacket pocket. This or that always goes wrong. Here's the last spot that I'm going to pause and do a comprehension check. The first question is, who is in the story? Well, thanks to my notes, I know Ray, Grandpa Half Moon, our bride Nancy Lee, and the groom Jonah. What's happening? Thanks to my notes, I know. Well, they're in a wedding soon. Ray is the ring bearer who's in charge of the ring, and he is asking for his grandpa's help in keeping it safe. Does it fit? Well, I think it does. I think family's been proven to be important to us in Chapter 1 for Ray and Grandpa Half Moon, so it makes sense to me that they are going to be attending a wedding where family is going to be celebrated and memories are going to be made. I will say the only thing that I'm not sure that fits is the very last thing that Grandpa says. That's how it goes with weddings, Grandpa said, slipping the ring into his jacket pocket. This or that always goes wrong. This seems to be new information to me. I wonder if the author is trying to tell me that something is about to happen that might fit with this or that always goes wrong. All right, now that I've shown you how to do a comprehension check on your own after some reading, I want you to get ready for yours. If you don't have a piece of paper or something to write with, you need to pause and go and get that right now. Okay, I hope you're back with your paper. You're going to write our 3 keywords down. Who? What? Does it fit? Who? What? Does it fit? And don't worry, these questions are also on your It's Learning, so you can go back and look at the poster if you need to. Now that you're ready to record and jot down some answers to these questions as you listen, let's see what happens next in Chapter 2.
So readers, today I want to teach you that when we're reading, we can give ourselves a comprehension check. We can read to the end of a chapter or a long chunk of text and then pause, asking ourselves, who's in this part of the story? What just happened? Does this fit with something that already happened, or is this new? Readers, as we're warming up our minds and brushing off some of the dust, we want to make sure that as we're reading, we're not just reading the story to love it, but we're also reading the story to understand it. I was thinking we could try some of this work today in our read aloud text, Indian Shoes. We're going to be reading from the chapter where Ray realizes that his pants are missing for the wedding. It's called Don't Forget the Pants. As we're reading, we'll read a chunk and then we'll pause and we'll give ourselves a comprehension check. Here we go. Ray and Grandpa Half Moon walked past a window framed in forest green velvet curtains, climbed a spiral staircase, strolled down a hallway with fuzzy burgundy wallpaper, and joined the groomsmen in an upstairs bedroom. A row of rented gray tuxes and crisp white shirts had been hung in the closet, and Grandpa pulled out the smallest sizes in each after handing Ray his belt, socks, and dress shoes. "This'll look mighty handsome on you," Grandpa said, leaving on the plastic wrap. Ray headed towards the bathroom to get dressed for the wedding. "Need any help?" Grandpa called, shaking hands with the best man. "Nope," Ray said. "I'll be okay." He'd already tried on the tux at the fitting, and Ray figured once he'd dressed, he could always ask for Grandpa's expertise with the tie. He didn't want to look like a little kid in front of the groomsmen. When Ray shut the heavy door behind him, he was happy to find a full-length mirror on the back of it. In no time, he'd pulled off his Cubs t-shirt and neon purple sweatpants. He'd hooked the two hangers over the crystal doorknob and torn away the plastic covering his crisp white shirt. Before long, he had it on and buttoned straight. Ray thought he looked just fine in the shirt and his 2-day-old trim from Bud's barbershop. Feeling braver, he decided to take on the bow tie. The bow itself was already tied, and there was a little hook and a little loophole for fastening around the collar. "Aha!" Ray thought. "I can do this. I won't even need Grandpa's help." So, readers, I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to give myself a comprehension check to make sure that I really understand what's happening in the story. I might start by thinking, who's in this part? Well, there's that little boy, and there's an older guy, and some other people. Readers, when we think about who's in the part of a text, we don't just want to name the boy or the girl. We want to try our best to remember our characters' names, leaning into who we really know is in the story.
That's your goal today. If you need to rewind the video and make sure you know who the actual character names are, do that now. It's important for our minds to be completely on, really understanding who the characters are in order to make connections. Now, you're going to answer these 3 questions as your comprehension check in your It's Learning assignment. Don't forget, if you need to go back and review what happened in the story in this little section that we're doing a comprehension check, rewind and find the right answers. Good luck.